I know lipedema surgery can be controversial in this community. Some of you are managing your symptoms through conservative treatments, and that's completely valid. I chose surgery. Today, I'm going to talk about exactly why I chose surgery, what it was like, so that you can decide for yourself. Hello, and welcome to Lipedema Unfiltered. My name is Beth. Today, we're going to talk about my first of 3 lipedema reduction surgeries. Before we dive into the details of my surgery, and there will be a lot of details and photos, so brace yourself. If that's not your vibe, totally fine if you want to click off this video. I'm making this specifically for people who have already decided to have surgery or are kind of on the fence, leaning towards having surgery and looking for information that will help them to make that final decision. This video is not meant to try to change people's minds to have surgery if you've already chosen not to. I fully support people's individual decision and treatment plans. If that includes surgery, great. If that doesn't include surgery, also great. I do want to make sure that people understand I am just a person with lived experience sharing my surgical details. This is my treatment plan specifically for me, not intended to diagnose or suggest treatments for any other person. I'm not a medical professional at all. All right, let's talk about my first of 3 surgeries. This was on my lower legs, 360 circumferential lower legs, and also my lower back. That was the first of my 3 surgeries. Why did I choose surgery when others have decided not to have surgery? This is fully dependent on my stage and my types of lipedema. I have types 3 and 4, and I also was diagnosed at stage 2 before I had surgery. There was no indication that my lipedema was going to stop progressing. 7 years of managing my inflammation through diet and exercise, and then 1 full year of managing through other conservative treatments. Manual lymphatic drainage every single day, wearing compression every single day, using a vibration plate every single day. These were the things that I had incorporated for a year into my treatment plan, hoping that it would actually slow the progression, if not reverse some of the progression of my disease. What I learned through the conservative treatments is that it's a great thing to do no matter what. Even if you're not seeing a reduction in your lipedema, that didn't mean that it wasn't worth doing. I still do those conservative treatments post-surgery. Again, it's a wonderful thing to do. It is necessary to connect yourself with your lymphatic system, to understand what this is doing holistically through the ecosystem of your body. So surgery is not a replacement for conservative treatments. They do go hand in hand. One of the main decision points for me to have surgery was that if I were to accept at the time in 2025 that my disease would not progress any further, it would just stabilize for the rest of my life, that still was not providing me the quality of life that I was seeking. I was seeking to get back to a greater activity level, to be able to move more freely and to move without heaviness. Those were things that I couldn't experience at that time. So if I didn't have the surgery, there was no chance that things were going to get better because the conservative treatments were not reversing any of the damage that had already been done. So my decision to have surgery was to take a chance that this surgery would give me a better quality of life, improve my mobility, and that's exactly what it did. Suffice it to say, surgery was not a shortcut by any means. This was the next step after years of conservative treatments. So I'm not here to tell you that surgery is right for you or for anyone else, but surgery was right for me, and I'm going to go into detail about what that was like. What is lipedema reduction surgery? It is not cosmetic surgery. It is not regular liposuction. This is a lymph-sparing liposuction, and that requires skill and training. The surgery plan that my surgeon put together was specific to my types of lipedema, my stage of lipedema, and where I was having the most fibrosis and the most pain. That is why my first surgery was on my lower legs and my lower back. If you have already chosen a surgeon, make sure that you have gotten a detailed surgical plan from them. If you're still searching for a surgeon, make sure that they do have that conversation with you about not just what your plan is, how many treatments you're going to have, and what the recovery is going to be like, but also ask them why. It's important that you understand why your surgeon's choosing an order of operation for you, literally an order of operation for you. to do lowers first, thighs first, arms first, whatever your surgical plan is, it should be based on your treatment that's specific to your type of lipedema and your stage. Surgery takes a lot of preparation. This is not something that you go into lightly. It shouldn't be something that you decide overnight. And there's kind of a built-in process leading up to this. It takes several months of preparation, minimal, for you to have the surgery scheduled, to do all of the things necessary to get the pre-clearance from your general practitioner and so forth. There's a built-in runway that you can have to change your mind or to make adjustments as needed. If you are not comfortable with the surgery, please don't have it. This is not something you should go into lightly. And this is something that you do have to prepare for, sometimes even for years preparation leading up to a surgery like this. Lipedema is a condition that it worsens with chronic inflammation. And that's why you need to take ownership of knowing what your triggers are. If you need help with that, I actually have a printable download that's linked in the description of this video that I created. And this was something that I used to track my own symptoms because I needed to know what my triggers were. The more data I collected on myself, the more I kept track of what I was doing and when I was feeling certain symptoms, the more surprised I was that certain foods like peppers or potatoes were causing the inflammation. I had to take steps to not introduce those triggers into my lifestyle. That's the kind of preparation that's necessary for this surgery well ahead of time. This digital download will help you to know where to start, and it's a 30-day plan so you can track all of the things, and then the final step is to do a pattern analysis, and this is based solely on the data that you are writing down for yourself. So hopefully that will help if you're not sure where to start to identify your triggers. In addition, trying to decide whether to have surgery, then finding a surgeon, then preparing for the surgery, and then trying to navigate the insurance process, that is all extremely overwhelming. I've done that, and I've created a tracker for that as well. Also linked in the description of this video is a way that you can assemble all of your conservative treatments, track all of your progress, have all of the information consolidated together in one place so that you can better navigate the conversations with doctors, potential surgeons, insurance companies. In the description, you'll find that link. It is something that I found necessary as part of this entire surgical process to make sure that I had done all of the things to prepare and then all of the things to document for insurance. There's no doubt in my mind that I chose the right surgeon for me. I'm happy to share that process. If you're interested, let me know. Just comment below. Say yes, you would like to hear about choosing a surgeon, and I can make a dedicated video to that. I'm going to touch briefly on the cost of this. When I was trying to determine whether or not to have surgery, it was hard for me to find people who were transparent about the cost. I can understand why some people don't share because it is very specific to your type of lipedema, your stage, your surgeon that you choose, whether you're traveling or not, if your insurance covers it, and things like that. It's very individual. But if it helps to have a number when you're trying to make this decision, I will tell you what my number was. This was the cost of my surgery because of all of those factors that I just mentioned. What it cost upfront was around $60,000. That is including the cost of the procedure itself, plus the flights, the Airbnb, the medications ahead of time, the aftercare, and the garments. Even with pre-authorization from my insurance company, the insurance company only reimbursed me about 5% of those costs, not very much at all. I will be making a dedicated video talking about the insurance process. It is not fun. It is very frustrating. And this is part of why I created this channel, was to create awareness and to advocate for change in the insurance process to get better access and coverage for these types of procedures. I do want to acknowledge the privilege that I have to have been able to come up with that money ahead of time. That does not mean, though, that it didn't come with sacrifice and a lot of hard work. I made decisions in my past that set me up to have access to these things. We had to do a lot of financial preparation in my household. We did have to make some sacrifices. Part of the sacrifices were I had to make a job change, and I also chose to pay for the surgery by taking out of my retirement. There is no guarantee that my 401k is going to be there in the future, especially considering the current state of affairs in the United States. Let's just say it, there's no guarantee that what I have invested in my future is going to be there in 20 or 30 years. I chose to invest in my present at the expense of my future, which means that I don't have much saved for retirement anymore. Some people might call me crazy or stupid for doing that. I don't give a shit, because you don't know the amount of pain and suffering that I was dealing with prior to this surgery. This was a well thought out process between me and my spouse. Again, we did make a lot of sacrifices to invest in this now. And there are things that we are continuing to sacrifice going forward so that we can rebuild our retirement. If you're concerned about the cost of this and you have decided you absolutely want to do this, but you don't know how you're going to finance it, get creative. If you've already made the decision to have surgery and you're just trying to figure out how to prepare, then this is the part for you. Let's talk about preparation for the months and weeks and days leading up to the surgery. Prefacing this by saying that this is the preparation I did for my first surgery, which was my lower legs and my lower back. Yours may be slightly different depending on your exact treatment, but this should be relatively the same types of preparation leading up to any surgery area. First, there's the physical preparation. You're going to need to get some blood work done, and this will be something that your surgical team should tell you what types of blood work you need, and then you will take that to your general practitioner. Make sure that you schedule ahead of time to get into your GP so that all of the blood work is done and submitted to your surgical team well in advance. There's usually a deadline that you have to have all of these things completed X amount of months or weeks before your surgery, or else it could be rescheduled. So plan ahead, make sure that you have all your appointments scheduled, everything is done. You're going to need to order some garments. Your surgical team should share with you the exact type of garment to order and the sizing. Trust the process on this one. You might be a little bit surprised at the sizing that they tell you, but this is because you're going to have a lot of wrapping and foam and things underneath your compression. So there could be a little bit of extra room necessary while still being a tight compression. So trust them on the sizing of this. Editing Beth here. I somehow lost some of my footage, so I'm going to refilm this portion here. One other thing that you're going to have to order is a leg bandage kit if you're having surgery on your leg. What I wish people had told me ahead of time is that sometimes these leg bandage kits will sell out. So you should receive a link to place the order from your therapist or from your medical team. And that worked fine for my first surgery. My second surgery, the place that I got in it the first time had sold out. I needed to find an alternate link. So just make sure you order this well ahead of time. I've seen some variations of the leg bandage kit as to what's included, what's not included, and has to be ordered separately. But for my surgery for my lower legs, there were a lot of layers of bandages. The benefit to this is that the incisions, they're very small, they're very tiny holes that were placed around my ankles and around my knees. Those were the only 2 points where these incisions were, but those were drainage points. So I had a lot of fluids coming out of my knees and my ankles. The benefit is that these multiple layers of bandages provide a sponge effect. So as the fluids are coming out, these layers are soaking some of that up. The downside is it's a lot of layers, and these are all underneath your compression garment. The order in which your therapist will show you to wrap could be slightly different, but this was how we were wrapping me. So directly over top of the small incisions were ointment and Band-Aids. On top of that, there's this tubular gauze that you put, you cut this off however much length you need, and then you just pull it up over top of your legs. On top of that goes the foam. There are ridges on here, so as I show you the pictures later on of my healing process, you'll see ridges on my legs, and that's from this foam here. On top of that, you'll wrap yourself with this cotton batting, and then on top of that, you have some ACE bandages. And then on top of that, you have your compression garment. This is necessary for healing to provide the pressure that your connective tissue is going to need as you're healing. But then also, your therapist should show you how tightly to pull let's say the cotton batting, or how tightly to pull the ACE bandage so it's not too much pressure. You're not cutting off circulation. But this is one of the things that you will need to order ahead of time. If you're traveling for your surgery, make sure that you're scheduling ahead of time for your flights and what place you're going to stay at. You could do an Airbnb, you could do a hotel. So choose a place that has what you need and that you can prepare the area ahead of time. And we'll talk in detail about the area prep in just a second. So be sure to reach out to communities on Facebook, on Instagram, on Reddit, asking for advice on places that people have stayed that they would recommend. If you are going with the Roxbury Institute in Salt Lake City, and like I did, and you're looking for a place to stay, I will share where I stayed because I loved the place that I stayed. It was perfect. When you're recovering from a very delicate procedure like this, it's not the time to build new habits. Get your habits in order ahead of time. So if you're looking to increase your hydration, or if you have to change your habits to get movement in, or anything like that, do it beforehand, practice beforehand. Mental and emotional preparation for this surgery. It is critical to choose someone to be there for your recovery that will prioritize you and your recovery. When you're recovering from the surgery, that's not the time that you should be caring for other people and cooking for other people or doing your own laundry. No, choose a family member or a friend that can prioritize you and that can do all these things. Kind of like getting your habits in order before surgery. When you're recovering is not the time that you should have to train somebody on how to do a load of laundry, okay? So choose someone who can do these things without your guidance, because you need to prioritize rest, recovery, movement, eating well, all of those things. If you do not have a family member or a friend who you think can take care of you after your surgery, you could also hire a private nurse. There are plenty of men and women who are very well experienced in caring for people post-surgery. And sometimes that is your best bet, is to hire somebody to do so. That is an option many people have taken, many people would recommend. So that is something that you can consider as part of the cost of this entire procedure. If you need to hire a private nurse, work that into your finances. Okay, now let's talk about the packing list. So I created myself a little list of things to pack when I was preparing for my surgery. If you think it might be helpful for me to create a free download for you, let me know in the comments below. Just comment free download surgery checklist, and I can create one for you guys because I love making lists. It's just something I like to do on a regular basis. So it's easy for me to create that, have it available to you guys if it would be helpful. So let me know below. The packing list could vary slightly depending on what type of surgery you're having, but most of these things will be pretty much the same no matter what. If you're having lower legs, thighs, arms, midsection, that's going to be relatively the same for some of these things. First thing is comfortable clothes. Don't get cute. You're not going to be looking pretty. You're not going to be putting on a fashion show for anybody. Comfortable clothes. You're already going to have compression garments on that are going to be tight against your skin with all the foam and the wrapping underneath. So lean into clothes that are going to be kind of flowy, going to allow you to move a little bit more freely, so that it's not going to be like jeans tied up against your compression garments. That would be very uncomfortable. So nothing cute. Go for comfortable clothes. You'll thank me later. Pack the compression garments that your surgical team had you order ahead of time, and make sure that you have some mesh bags to wash them in. Lean into the convenience of using a washing machine to wash these, because you don't want to be washing these by hand. There's no need to do that, but you do want to be mindful that these can be somewhat delicate and you don't want them wearing down in the washing machine if you throw other things in with it, like towels and washcloths and things like that. So there are mesh bags. I will link a ton of stuff below. If the links help you to visualize what I'm talking about, then the links will all be below in the description. And these mesh bags just help to kind of isolate those compression garments from other things that you have in the wash with it, so it doesn't wear down a little bit too quickly. Shower curtains, clear shower curtains. They're super inexpensive. You can go to Walmart, you can buy them on Amazon, wherever you can find, dollar store, wherever you find them the cheapest. Just get, I had 5 shower curtains and I only used 4 of them, but I had one on reserve just in case. So the shower curtains are a way for you to sit on surfaces without worrying about any of the fluids that are coming out of you leaking into a surface beneath. So think about where you're sleeping, on a bed or on a couch, if you're sitting on chairs, if you're sitting in a car, all of those places, you don't want to have to worry about if some of the fluids are leaking out through your compression or soaking through your compression. Are they going to stain the surface? Or, this is a worry-free way. You'll probably want to put some additional things on those surfaces as well. I also had one of these blankets. So I basically laid down On the bed, the chairs, the car, I laid down a clear shower curtain liner and then also this on top of it because this is washable. Again, I'll link all of this stuff below. And this is just something to ease your mind that you don't have to constantly worry about the mess that you might be creating. Puppy pads are going to be a really good way for you to line the floor, line the bed, line the chairs, lining every surface of where you're staying so that you can easily throw them away as some of the fluids are coming out through your incisions. Order all your medications ahead of time. Schedule with the pharmacy, make sure that the order is placed and that you can pick it up prior to your surgery day. For the surgeons who use the tumescent fluid, like mine did, there's a slight anesthetic quality to it. So it helps a little bit with the pain relief. And that takes a few days to wear off fully or to come out of your incisions fully. So I did not need to have any hard painkillers. I didn't need to take any of those. Tylenol was enough for me. That's not everybody's experience, but for me, I had regular Tylenol and then Tylenol PM. Tylenol did the trick for me, and then Tylenol PM helped me sleep at night through some of the discomfort. There was an antibiotic that I took. Mine was doxycycline. I hope I said that right. I'm reading it from my notes here. I also had an anti-clotting medication called Lovenox, and then I had some Zofran for anti-nausea. But those are the things I had to order ahead of time. Adjustable size footwear. This was critical for my lower leg surgery because my feet were so swollen, and I wanted to have slip-ons that were adjustable. So they had to have Velcro, but they also had to not have any backing to them. So I will link the ones that I used for my surgery down in the description. This was a recommendation from someone else that I saw on a Facebook group. Thank you to whoever that was. I do not know who you were, but you recommended these slip-ons, and I legitimately still wear these today on a daily basis. These are just my average, my normal slippers now for around the house because they're adjustable. So I was able to kind of adjust the Velcro, adjust the sizing of them when my feet were swollen. But then when my feet aren't swollen and just on a daily basis, they're comfortable enough to wear all the time. So those are linked below. Amazing, absolutely amazing. And also, you'll want to have a hard, spiky ball. I will defer to physical therapists or the medical professionals to explain the exact reason why this is so critical. But let me just tell you from personal experience, having a hard, spiky ball was something I didn't expect. I was just following recommendations from other people, but glad that I did because there were times in my recovery when I just kind of felt like strangely enough, I could feel that some lymphatic fluid was a little stuck. Like something wasn't moving. It's hard to describe because you don't really feel your lymphatic fluid moving, but you can kind of tell when it's not, if that makes sense. So this spiky ball is something you just kind of rub along the surface. You don't use too much pressure, but enough pressure that you can kind of work some of the hard spots out. You will probably have these little hard spots. And so you just kind of, it's a small ball with little spikes on it, and you just kind of rub it in the area where there's a little bit of stiffness. You can also have your MLD specialist do this with you to show you how to use it, what kind of pressure to use. But this was something that I was not expecting I would need, but glad that I got it. And I didn't use it a lot. So I still have it, and it's next to my lymphatic pump that I use every day just in case. So don't use it often, but glad I still had it for post-surgery because it was definitely the time when I did need it. Now for the kicker, a Shiwi. This is something that you're going to probably think I'm crazy and you're going to say, oh, I could never do that. Trust me. Trust me. You want this and you want to practice using it before your surgery. You will be hydrating post-surgery, which means you will be peeing a lot. The last thing you want to do is to take your compression off and put it back on, and take it back off and put it back on, and take it back off and put it back on. You're going to be peeing a lot. And this is just a device that women can use to pee standing up. Do not skip the step of practicing before your surgery. Do not think that when you're medicated and you're in pain from surgery that that's the time you're going to learn how to use this thing. practice ahead of time. It was a mental shift for me to be able to pee standing up because, hello, I'm in my 40s. I have gone my entire life sitting down to pee. So for me to suddenly do this standing up, yeah, it took me a few minutes. But practice, use this. It's going to be a time saver and a pain saver. One other thing that you'll probably need is masking tape. This sounds a little bit strange, but when you're trying to put down all the puppy pads and all of the shower curtain liners and blankets and things like that, occasionally you might have a surface where it would be easier to just tape it down rather than to just let it free flow and shift around. So bring some masking tape. It's less harmful to surfaces than duct tape, even though duct tape would probably hold it better. You don't want to be risking damaging someone else's surface if you're staying in a hotel or an Airbnb. Masking tape works just fine to keep the puppy pads where they need to be. Last, but certainly not least, electrolytes. I have been drinking electrolytes in my water every single day for the last 8 years. So this was a pre-established habit that I was already doing that was easy for me to keep up with. This would be one of the things that if you're not used to drinking electrolytes, you want to start trying to drink them ahead of time, ahead of your surgery, so it's become a habit for you. I have always recommended Element because I was doing strict ketogenic lifestyle for so many years. Element has been a part of my daily routine and I've always loved their flavors. I've tried other electrolytes, didn't really care for them as much. So I've got a link to Element below. They're not sponsoring this. None of these links are sponsors for this video. This is just sponsored by me. But these are things that I buy with my own money, things I would recommend to anyone, but by no means do you have to purchase these things. If the links, I mentioned this before, but I'll say it again, if the links that I'm providing in the description just help you to visualize what I'm talking about, please make your own decisions about what products you want to buy or what things you have access to. But these are really just meant to me sharing exactly what it is that I was using or am using. You don't have to buy these things. Now we're going to talk about the details of the surgery. So all of this leading up to it was the preparation, and I've described a couple of things like puppy pads and surfaces this and bodily fluids that. Now we're going to get into the nitty gritty. So if you only needed the preparation of this and you want to click off here because you're not all about the actual surgical procedures, I'm totally fine with that. The actual date of my surgery for my lower legs and my lower back was on March 19th, 2025. That was at the Roxbury Institute in Salt Lake City, Utah with Dr. Smart. I had a pre-op appointment on March 18th, so I needed to arrive in Utah one day before for the pre-op appointment. And this was critical to making sure that not only was I there in person, so Dr. Smart could see me in person and just kind of reiterate what the surgery plan was, and meeting in person helped him as much as it helped me because I'm now seeing my doctor face to face. And I'm able to get that last bit of comfort of, yes, I chose the right person. Yes, he is the same in person as he was in my consultation. And I'm meeting the surgical team. They're taking care of me. They're taking preoperative photos. All of these things were a critical component of my surgery plan. So there the day before, pre-op appointment, meeting in person, meeting the whole team, going over the last minute details, making sure that I had the prescriptions at the pharmacy, that I was going to pick them up, and that I had a place to stay. And also my husband was there with me, so he could meet the surgical team and they could talk with him about caring for me afterwards, making sure he was also prepared. The day of the surgery, March 19th, I had to arrive at 6:15 in the morning. Had the surgery that day. I'll go into detail in just a few minutes, but then for the 3 days after my surgery, I had a scheduled MLD appointment with their on-site staff. So this was guaranteed 3 touch points after my surgery that I would have with the surgical team. So if I had any complications, if I had any concerns, I was there in person to see them for 3 days afterwards. That gave me a good sense of comfort. I didn't have any complications, but the fact that I had these appointments on the calendar, that set them apart from other surgery centers that I had researched ahead of time. There were some, just kind of a little side note here. Part of why I chose Roxbury Institute was because of this very thing, that they have on-site staff that are doing the MLD appointments. Everything is in-house. So that is part of the cost of the surgery, is the MLD appointments afterwards. But if I had gone with other surgeons, I would have been required to find an MLD specialist in that same area, make those appointments myself. I preferred to have the experts take care of that. And so I know that I'm seeing someone who's recommended by my surgeon because they work together. And so that was comforting to me, that I was there on site with them for 3 days afterwards. So that was part of my surgery treatment plan, was MLD day after surgery, then the next day, and then the next day before I flew home. And then I also had a post-op appointment 1 month later. So April 21st, I got a phone call from Dana at the Roxbury Institute, and she was checking in on me to make sure that I was still recovering well. This happened to coincide with my flight back to Salt Lake City for my surgery number 2. So the fact that Dana was still checking on me, even though they were going to see me the next day, she still called just right at the scheduled time to say, are you okay? Are you good to fly? Are you feeling good? Are you recovering? All of those kinds of things. So it was wonderful. Editing Beth here again. Audio got corrupted on the last part of this, so I wasn't going to make you suffer through the horrible audio. I'm just going to refilm this. So far, we have covered my surgery plan and packing process, the cost of my surgery, and my surgery plan. Now we're going to talk about what was surgery actually like, what was my recovery, and how am I doing today. I took some notes in my bullet journal during this whole process. So I'm just going to refer back to them so you can see contemporaneous thoughts that I had during this process. So on the day of surgery, which was March 19th, I woke up at 5 a.m., spent some time prepping the space in the Airbnb before going to the Roxbury Institute. We arrived at the surgery center at 6:15 a.m. My husband came with me to get prepped, changed, vitals taken, IV inserted, and then Dr. Smart drew on my legs. They took me to the operating room, which was really, really cold. I still remember how cold it was. And then not only are you in a cold room, but then they wash you down with a cold solution. So I was shivering by the time I got onto the operating table, but then they covered me in a warm blanket and they were playing some really good music in the room. I did tell the surgical team that if they could get me singing, that means that I am comfortable. And there were a few of us singing together to Fleetwood Mac. And that was the last thing I remember before I was super relaxed. Now, I was under twilight. I was not under general anesthesia. So I do recall certain parts of the surgery. And I did write that down here. I recall a few times hearing someone tell me to shift my legs, turn the other way, and to uncross my arms. I also heard Dr. Smart giving instructions to increase or decrease certain tools or fluids. I woke up in a state where I was shivering and I couldn't control that. This is not an unusual thing to happen after a surgery, even coming out of twilight. Instead of general anesthesia, this still was something I experienced my first surgery. I did not experience that at surgeries number 2 or number 3. This was just something for surgery number 1. The post-op team was very professional. They were not at all concerned. They were just checking in on me to say, are you okay? Do you feel safe? Are you anxious? And I was like, no, I actually feel fine. I just can't stop shaking. So that subsided after about half an hour and my vitals were all fine. Everything was good. Then I was able to go home. I wrote here, when we got back to the Airbnb, I got into bed and only woke up to use the toilet. I took all meds, ate well, and kept up with wrapping in the legs in the puppy pads. Lots of drainage on the first 2 days, but the pads on the floor didn't get as dirty as the others on Facebook had experienced. So the reason I wrote this down is because going into my first surgery, I was taking cues from people in Facebook forums who had shared their experience with not just the same surgeon that I had gone to, but with other surgeons for lipedema reduction. And a lot of people had experienced what looked like a crime scene. This was my experience for surgery number 2, was not my experience for surgery number 1. For whatever reason, my lower legs did not have as much drainage over the course of the first 3 days as much as I had expected. So I had puppy pads all over the floor that I would walk on between the bed, the couch, the bathroom, the kitchen, and they really didn't look that bad. So all of the fluids that were coming out through my incision points were being soaked up by the bandages and the compression garments, and not a lot of it was soaking through to the point that it was dripping down onto the floor. I know this might be TMI for some people, but this is the reality of the surgery. You are going to have some drainage, and a lot of people experience severe drainage to the point that there's a lot on the floor. And this is why you put down the puppy pads. This is why you put down the shower curtain liners. All right, let's talk day by day. What I did was I wrote down just a sentence or two about how I actually felt. What was the pain feeling like? So I'm hoping this will help someone to really understand what it felt like to recover from this surgery. So day of, I wrote Charlie horse in both calves, no pain on back. If you've ever had a Charlie horse, yes, it's uncomfortable. Sometimes it can be excruciatingly painful, but in this case, it was just like one of those annoying Charlie horses that happen in the middle of the night, except it was just a constant Charlie horse. Dull pain, not really too bad. Tylenol took care of it. Day 1 post-op, Charlie horse, less painful, soreness in feet and toes, swelling in the left toes. Overall, my left side had more severe symptoms than my right side. So the draining, the swelling, the pain on the left side was just different from the right side. Day 2 feels like the day after a severe leg day in the gym. My left side is not draining as much as my right side. If you've ever had a really tough workout in the gym on your legs and then the next day you're like, oh my God, I can't walk. That's kind of what it felt like. It wasn't anything I hadn't experienced before through working out. Day 3, same as day 2. The flight home led to swelling and drainage on the right side. It was about a 2.5 to 3 hour flight home, and it wasn't until the last half hour or so that I felt a little wetness around my right ankle, which let me know that there was a lot of drainage happening. So it was soaking through all of the bandages. There was no mess on the floor. No one knew a thing. It was just I knew because I could feel this. What happened was when we got home to our house from the airport, I just changed my bandages and kind of reset things. And I kept the same compression garment on, but I just changed the bandages underneath and all was good. Days 4 through 6, swelling going down, walking feels like a bad sunburn is being pressed on. Day 7, I had my first MLD appointment at home. Rewrapping was more pleasant because my heels weren't wrapped in bandages. Had to rewrap tighter by the end of the day. The thing to note here is that this was a sign that my swelling was going down and that my body was changing. So I did not have to wrap my entire foot anymore. It's good to know that as your body is changing, as you're healing, that you can adjust how you're wrapping things to accommodate that. Day 8, this is where the spiky ball comes into play. Feeling less pain, but worried about harder places or pooling in the left foot. I did MLD, used compression socks while washing bandages and foam. That's definitely something to note here as well, is that you will have to hand wash your foam and hand wash your bandages. But while you're washing them, you have to have some kind of compression on, something approved by your medical professionals, but you will have to have some form of compression on at all times. Day 10 and 11, I wrote significant turning point. Feeling mostly mobile, 80%-ish, pain in the back is subsiding, and leg pain is down to feeling like a rug burn. So no longer a bad sunburn, now it's a rug burn. Day 13, wore real shoes for the first time. Graduated to compression socks a day early. I'm so tired of the foam. So I was told that I would have to wear the foam and all of the wrappings for 2 weeks. So day 13, I had a discussion with Lisa at the Roxbury Institute and said, I, I just, I don't think that I need this anymore. And she agreed with me. And by the way, Lisa and Janae and Janine, they have a podcast called Lipedema Stories, and I have done an episode with them. They're wonderful. Both Janae and Lisa were doing my MLD after my surgeries, so I've worked closely with them. They are wonderful. And so Janine is also on the podcast with them, and they talk to women about their lipedema stories. And they also have social media accounts under Lippy Lymph Ladies, and they talk about different tips for lipedema and lymphedema. So if you're not listening to their podcast or following them on social media, please go do both of those things. I will have them linked in the description below. So I placed a call to Lisa and asked, hey, can I wear another form of compression? Because not only do I feel like I don't need this foam anymore, I think that I just keep having to rewrap tighter and tighter and tighter. But also my compression garments, the Morena compression that I was wearing that go from the foot all the way up to the chest area, It wasn't fitting me anymore. The swelling had gone down so much that I was just constantly yanking up my compression. And she said, you know what? You're ready to graduate. So I was able to go to normal medical grade compression socks and order a smaller size in the Morena. In the meantime, I had some CZ Salis. I will link them below as well. CZ Salis, there's a summertime series, which I am wearing right now. This is not what I was asking Lisa about that day, but CZ Salis, you can see it's not quite opaque, but this is their summer series, so it's more breathable. But they do have the opaque compression, and I had a pair of those that I had been wearing pre-surgery, and I told her the size, I told her the compression amount, and I asked, can I wear this until my new Morena compression comes in? And she said, yes, absolutely. So that's what I did. Here's the downside. Day 14, I wrote down, yesterday, no bandaging felt weird. But I was able to get approval from Lisa to wear my own compression garments and leggings. She enthusiastically said yes to CZ Salis small size. It fit much better on my calves. I used to struggle for 10 plus minutes to get them on before surgery. Now it's less than 5 minutes and no gloves needed. If you know, you know. Putting on compression, sometimes we have to wear gloves because they're really super tight and we just can't grip them with our hands. You have to use gloves to get these things on. And here I didn't need the gloves anymore. I was wearing them and they fit. Continuing on that same day though, day 14, calves feel tender when I walk up and down stairs. I still can't bend my knees to kneel well, and my knees are still very sore. Getting up and down off the floor is hard, but the shape of my calves are really lovely. Post shower today, my left ankle was dribbling a drop or two. Band-aids on, compression socks, and CZ Salis. I want to go back to something I had written down, and I'm so glad I wrote this down. The shape of my calves are lovely. Never in my life before that day had I ever said that I liked anything about my legs. To go from hiding my legs for decades, because I've been dealing with lipedema since I was 9, to go from decades of hiding my legs to writing in my journal that my legs look lovely. It was a moment. And that's a moment that I wanted to pause and really reflect on, because today, lovely doesn't even describe how much I love my legs and how great they look, because all of the efforts put in my entire life, my activity, my diligence to eating well and to health and treating my body well, it now shows. This is why it's important to build the good habits before the surgery. And Dr. Smart was the first person ever to tell me that I had good muscle tone. The reason he was the first person to tell me that is because he's the first person who saw it. A trained surgeon knows the difference between connective tissue, fat cells, and muscle. And he told me I have good muscle tone. But now I could see it. Such a moment makes everything worth it for me. And that's why I put it in my journal. Surgery did not cure my lipedema. Today, I am still eating the same way I did before surgery. Very healthy, very clean. I'm still exercising, actually even less now today than I was before surgery. The underlying theme is that my lifestyle was already in place and my body now is cooperating. So lipedema is still there. I still have it. I'm going to have it my entire life. But the surgery has changed how I treat my lipedema. And I feel as if the treatments are working now. It is not making me feel like it's a losing battle anymore. These treatments are working because they support my body in the way that I need. And it's more maintainable. It's more sustainable for me now. When I look to my future, I see my activity levels being stable and being on par with what I want out of my life. Lipedema is still with me, but I am able to manage it now that I've had this surgery. Hopefully this has helped to provide some perspective to those of you who are looking to have surgery. Or if you've had surgery and you had similar experiences, please comment below. How are you doing today? For those of you who are still curious about my additional surgeries, please subscribe, because I will have a part 2 and a part 3. Part 2 will be my thigh surgery, circumferential thighs, and part 3 is going to be my upper arms. Once again, linked below, there's a ton of stuff. Not sponsored, These are not things that you are forced to buy. These are not things that you have to buy. These are simply reference points for you. I also have a website, lipedemaunfiltered.com. That is my information hub. It's a place where I link all of the products that I use on a regular basis, but also there is an information hub there, research articles about lipedema, research about GLP-1s and how it's helped people with lipedema to manage inflammation, conservative treatments, digital tools to help you track your symptoms, to help you track all of your conservative treatments, how to compile information for an insurance claim. All of these things are at lipedemaunfiltered.com. I'm creating this for you because I know how hard it was to navigate all of this on your own. Let's not do it alone anymore. Let's do it together. Comment below. Let me know what else you would like to see at my website, and I will see you next time because we're just getting started.